Hey Jenna, welcome to the Feminine Frequency.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, so grateful to have you here and excited to really dive in and talk about your journey with mindfulness and meditation and really inviting our listeners into a space of deeper connection for themselves, deeper levels of peace and calmness and confidence from within. So I'm looking forward to whatever comes through today.
Me too. Me too. It's always fun to see what comes through.
Yeah, I've listened to a few episodes on your podcast and I really loved the episode. I can't remember the name of the meditation company, but you were really diving into, I think you interviewed someone around, bringing meditation into like a daily ritual and a practice and how much meditation means to you. So I'd love to start there and hear about your journey to really bringing meditation into your life and maybe some of the benefits that you've seen along the way with having meditation as part of your practice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start off with saying that meditation was always something that was in my awareness. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area, so I feel like I had like awareness of all of the different like world religions, literally, and their practices, and spiritual practices in general. I spent my summers in Mount Shasta and Tahoe, so just complete like earth vibes, spiritual vibes. But I was always so intimidated by meditation. I always thought it was like something that's like only monks could do, or I just didn't know anything. To be honest, that's the bottom line. I didn't know anything about what meditation would be like in my life. And then my dad passed away when I was 23. And a lot of he passed away from organ failure because he was an alcoholic. And so a year passed and I was just having panic attacks like day after day after day. And I didn't know what they were. I had no idea what they were. And it was the calmest time of my life, for the most part. I was in stable relationship for the first time. I was in a stable household for the first time. I was in state, like everything was stable. And then all of a sudden these panic attacks were happening. And I went to specialist after specialist, doctor after doctor, and they were like, well, your blood work looks fine. So, if you have one of these, they call them episodes, they're come in when you're having one. And I was like, that's really hard to do. So it's like, okay, but they typically happened at night. For me, it was like I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and some might call that a spiritual awakening. I just think that my mind was in process, and I you could call it a spiritual awakening. That was a very big, I'm a huge skeptic, which is funny that I do the work I do now. I think the universe has a great sense of humor. But anyway, I was really intimidated by meditation. And then when I found out that it was panic attacks, that I was having panic attacks, kind of serendipitously, I was reading a book with a character who had panic attacks and their symptoms were very similar to mine. And I can't for the life of me remember the book. But it just clicked. And then I was like, I have to figure this out. I can't live like this anymore. And so I started meditation. That's really where the meditation practice began. Started with body scanning meditation. So I would use it at night when I was already worked up in my state of mind. And I would just start with focusing on my toes and then move all the way up through the balls of my feet to my heels. And that's what a body scan meditation is. You start typically down at your toes and then work your way up, and you just really are focusing your awareness on one point in the body. And so that helped me kind of start to calm down. And then I started meditating because it's kind of what happened. It's so interesting. I always say spirituality is a side effect of healing, and it really for me was. And I was starting to really question like what is my like life purpose here too. I was like in my mid 20s. I feel like that's pretty standard time to start kind of questioning that and asking. And I'd been in school for 7 years at that point, getting my degree. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing. So there was that coupled with like all of the trauma of my childhood, plus, the trauma of losing a parent. And all of this was kind of culminating together. And so I turned to meditation and I started with like YouTube videos. And then I just, everything changed from that point. And I know why. You move from your sympathetic nervous system into your parasympathetic nervous system when you meditate for about 20 minutes a day. So once I got to that point, for a couple weeks, I really started to see the life changing benefits of meditation, and I just never stopped because
Mm.
why would you? It's a
Mhm.
practice. It's easy. I always say like our anxiety, our stress, it's something to manage. It's not something that just like, poof goes away, I believe. Um, and I've seen in my life. So that's my experience. But that's a very long-winded answer to your question. But
Mm. Yeah, I feel like what you shared about having that book as a synchronistic time that you're reading that at the same time that you're having panic attacks, my intuition speaks to me through books as well, and I'll pick up the perfect book at the perfect time. And so I love that that was happening, and maybe like the connection wasn't there, but it feels like that was, in your life at that time, like the chances of a character in a book having panic attacks, right? Like so
right.
wild. Yeah. And also just, most people don't find meditation through having like their life being peachy and perfect and being really happy. We often find these tools when we need them the most. And especially anxiety is the opposite. Like the activity in the brain and the nervous system is really the opposite of what happens when we're in meditation and when we get into that meditative state. So I love that you um, turned to something like meditation and an inner practice to help you to navigate that, what was happening in your nervous system at the time. And I do feel like a lot of the challenges in our lives obviously are often what guide us to this path of spirituality and awakening.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing about your story. And I can imagine, anyone who's lost a parent can relate to, the experience that you had. So how does your meditation practice look? What does it look like today?
Oh, I love that. My meditation practice looks like a moment to moment awareness of the present. Um, it's really moved from like off the cushion. I don't use a cushion. When I started, and that's part of like why it was so intimidating. I was like, I need a cushion, I need candles, I need beads, I need like I thought I needed like all these things. You just need to sit or lay down. And there's so many different ways to meditate. So I've really branched out from the body scanning to sitting, and it looks a lot more like prayer now than ever before. It looks like I do a lot of journaling, and then I also do a style of meditation that is movement meditation. So it's a feminine embodiment practice of style meditation that I love, and it's created by my teacher Denise Elizabeth Byron, and it's called Sensuous Wisdom.
Mm.
And yeah, it's really juicy and has really helped me heal a lot of the feminine energy in my life. So it looks like different every day. Sometimes I'll do just a seated meditation. Sometimes I'll do a visualization. Sometimes I'll just journal. Sometimes I'll pray. But I do that like 4 times a day, 3 4
Wow.
times a day. Yeah. So it's just different, and it's helped me to just kind of touch in with my intuition and kind of ask myself like, okay, well, what do I need today? Do I need to sit in my meditation and just do a mindfulness meditation? Do I need to do a movement meditation? So it just depends on the day.
Yeah, I really love this. The essence of your practice is very feminine in that it's not super rigid. It doesn't have to look exactly the same every day. It's a inflow process of tuning in and checking with yourself, like, what do I really need today versus what should I do.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, so powerful, and using different modalities like movement, which is, the embodiment of the feminine. I love that that's part of your practice. It's a big piece of what I've been bringing in too for my clients and for myself. And I mean, our intuition lives in our body, and so connecting to the body is so powerful. Slowing down, feeling the body is really a way to be so present, in the present moment. And yeah, for me, mine is, my practice. I sit in my bed, like I wake up, I grab a glass of water, I sit in my bed. It's nothing super fancy. I do like to light a candle or Palo Santo or like create an environment. But for me, especially with my own mental health and coming out of anxiety and depression and using these practices to continue navigating it, meditation is like a solid, like, gets to happen first thing in the morning for me, because I know how beneficial it is for me. And like you said before, like, how could I not use it? Like, once you've experienced the benefits of it, and it's not just during meditation, but throughout the day and throughout your life, how it impacts outside of that.
100%. It's and it's a science too, it's just how our bodies, how it's a gateway to allowing our bodies to finally rest and digest all of the energy. And that could be food, that could be, it could just be what you're picking up on, it could be any and all of it. Allows our bodies to just kind of like let it move through. And the problem happens when we're sitting with it in our bodies. There's a really great book about that, called The Body Keeps a Score.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that book. And it talks a lot about how our bodies store trauma. And yeah, it's brilliant, brilliant book about that.
Beautiful. So if someone feels like they've been like inconsistent with a meditation practice, or they wanted to start meditating, or maybe they just haven't like really been able to incorporate it into their everyday life, is there anything that you feel is a good either starting point, or any tools that you have, tips, recommendations that you have to support them in bringing meditation into their life?
Yes, yes. So a couple things come to mind. The first is accountability. So your body will keep you accountable, if you let it. And if you're feeling like way more stressed out, you feel like ungrounded, and you feel like you're just kind of everywhere, like listen to it, give it what it needs. But also the accountability of a teacher or a class, or just something that you find exciting to you. Like it's not supposed to be like a discipline in the sense of a punishment. It's supposed to be a discipline in the sense of a study of a practice, right? So find something that's enjoyable to you first and foremost, so that you want to go, but also allow your body to keep you accountable, allow somebody to keep you accountable. And then, like, just 1 minute a day, start there, just start with 1 minute a day. I think we often feel like, and again, this is why I think meditation can be so intimidating. It's like I have to sit here for 3 hours and like, and then I'll find enlightenment, or maybe that happens for some people. But I think if you just start with baby steps, like the bare bones, the bare minimum, start there and then work your way up. There's no law that says you can't, just tack on a couple minutes, or, a couple seconds even into your practice, or just see how long you sit there, at first, and then gauge it from there. I think that's the best advice I can give somebody who's like, I really want to start this, but I'm not consistent. It's like, well, don't beat yourself up over it. And find something that excites you, find somebody to hold you accountable, and then just let let your process be your process.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that accountability piece is so huge, especially when we're creating new habits,
Mhm.
because it's easy. Like the ego doesn't want us to sit still because it's afraid of what we might find, that we might actually connect to our highest self and actualize and bring our best self forward and make the changes that bring us the most joy. And expansion is scary for the ego. And so when we sit quietly, the brain is going to tell you, oh, like, I need to go do this, this, and this, and have the to-do list going, or I don't have time for that. And it will make all of these excuses. And it's interesting to watch and see what the brain does when you're trying to develop a new habit, especially meditation. And I love the idea of having like a teacher or a community that you meditate with. And I also find that something as simple as having like an app. I
Mhm.
use Insight Timer. That was how I started to get consistent, is like seeing, oh, you've meditated 5 days in a row. And just, if silent meditation is intimidating at first, then starting with a guided meditation is okay. I find what you were saying is people try to jump into the most advanced version of meditation and like do 20-30 minutes and silent meditation, and then they wonder why they don't want to go back to it. It's like we build up over time, and your brain gets used to it. And I'm curious to know from you, and I think it'd be good to just illuminate, for you, is meditation always really peaceful? Like when you're actually meditating, does it feel like your mind is quiet the whole time? Like, what is your experience when you are doing, let's say, a seated meditation?
Yeah. So I always have a notebook handy. Sometimes I have to get all of that to do chatter out before I can sit because my mind runs, right? So our minds run and our thoughts don't stop. It's just we dip into what's called the field of discontinuity when we meditate, which is the gap between thoughts. So our thoughts run for like 1 to 3 seconds, and then there's a little gap, and then the next thought comes in. So when we meditate, we can kind of get into that gap. Um, but sometimes the thoughts feel like they're just firing, and so sometimes I just keep a notebook by me, and then I'll just jot everything down. And when I finally feel like okay, that's out, I can sit. And yeah, some days are harder than others, I think, and that's normal. I think for me it is, and and it's really easy for me. It's way easier for me to connect now. But I've been doing this for mm, 4 years, so I think the time, again, it's a practice. You go back, you keep going, and your brain does settle. You're like, okay, it's like training a puppy. It's like, okay, we're doing this now, like
Hmm.
come back. And that's really the start of meditation, is just becoming aware that your thoughts exist. It's not necessarily a matter of not having thoughts. I mean, I haven't, if that's possible, somebody tell me, but I haven't found that to be possible. It's more just what becoming aware of your thoughts and learning not to attach to them and run with them to the next destination. So just start there. Just start becoming aware of your thoughts. And I think that's why journaling is so helpful to so many people, because especially when you're doing the morning pages and you're just kind of like free flowing with it and it's just stream of consciousness. It's a like open-eyed meditation in a sense, that you're just flowing with your thoughts, but you're not necessarily attaching to them. You're just kind of letting your mind just do its thing. You can
Hmm.
become a silent observer of that.
Yeah. I mean, if I think back to before I started meditating, like the difference between, like, meditation is really about learning how to relate to your thoughts differently. And before you have a meditation practice where you become the observer of your thoughts, we feel like we are our thoughts. We feel like there's no other choice. Like, I am anxious right now versus like I'm feeling anxiety or I'm having anxious thoughts, right? And so learning how to be the observer of your thoughts, of, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's just a thought. I don't need to do that thing, or it doesn't define me, or like that might not be true. It becomes super empowering to be able to witness your thoughts. And then instead of the reactivity, being able to respond to them from a higher place, a more grounded place. And I do really think that having something like journaling, or for some people, it's movement. Like, some people waking up and meditating right away is like not really an option for them. And so I really like this idea of figuring out what works for you And, some days that might mean journaling before you meditate, or doing a yoga practice before you meditate, going outside, doing something, or maybe even doing a little bit of work. Some people are like, I have to get to work, and it feels better. They have a lot of creativity and energy to flow with it first and then get into your meditation practice. So, yeah, there really isn't one right way to do it. And I think over time it also evolves. It changes what we need.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it is ever evolving, and so we're kind of always the student of ourselves, in that sense, and just the more and the beautiful thing that happens from all of that listening is that you start to hear your intuition so much clearer. And you start to trust it because it works, right? Like we get to see it and we start to build a case for why our intuition is working, um, or how our intuition is working, and it's on point. And so you're like, wow, okay, I can trust this. And I think that's why it's like this is a side effect of healing, as we begin to do these meditation practices, as we begin to become that silent observer of our thoughts and detach from them instead of being like, I am these. It's like, well, I am something else. What is that? And so you just, I think, naturally get curious and you keep going. um, but it is the best thing I have ever done for myself is meditating. I just, I can't say enough about it. I'm so grateful to the ancient wisdom keepers who created the practice, and it just every day it's like, oh my gosh, like thank you.
Mm.
Saved my life, really.
Yeah, my whole body is like tingling right now. I feel very much the same way, and so much gratitude, because my life also I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be where I am without this practice. And it can be so simple. So I feel you on that, and would love to talk more about intuition and kind of like what that means to you. And um, yeah, just talking more about how you can use intuition as a guide in your everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. Our intuition is our natural state of knowing. um Everyone has it. It's not necessarily something that some one person is more gifted in than the other. Just like meditation practice, everybody's intuition talks a little differently, and so you just have to learn. It's like learning a new language. So sometimes our bodies are it's super embodied, and it's just like I get chills all over. And it's the feeling. So there's different clairs, um, for our psychic channels, which is just our intuition. And it's with all of the senses. So there's clear feeling, clear knowing, clear hearing, seeing, taste, touch. There's a different one. And so you just have to learn what yours is. And you do, especially as you meditate, you really start to learn and trust what you see and trust what you get. It's kind of like a download. Some people call it downloads. And it's what's tapped into everything, tapped into the collective energy. So you might find that you have an idea and then you see it like on Instagram from somebody you follow, you're like, oh, like they're just starting that program, or I was just thinking about that. And it's because you're connected with them more so than the rest of the collective, but it's all connected. And you start to see that in your intuition. And I think that the best place to get started again is in your body. Like, we say gut feelings for a reason. Where does that show up? So oftentimes when I'm working with clients, I'll ask them like, where does that show up in your body? Where does that emotion show up in your body? Starting with the emotional resilience piece is key to healing, because oh my gosh, honestly, Amy, I think that the best thing that we can do as teachers, as guides, is to teach people how to not be afraid of themselves. That
Mm.
starts in the emotion.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that we're not used to allowing ourselves to feel the full range of emotions and feel like, something terrible is going to happen if I actually let myself feel. And teaching women how to hold themselves through that and how to be with their emotions is one of the most liberating things that we can do, for sure. I think that that emotional resilience really allows us to relate to the world in a completely different way. And I feel like that's a huge piece of empowerment, of
Yeah.
feeling like you have control over your environment through your response and reactivity. But it comes from being able to navigate and hold yourself through those emotions. So I
What?
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, like it's totally reclaiming your power, and in doing all that work, you are like helping your intuition. So
Hmm.
you don't even have to really focus on your intuition. Just focus on healing what needs to be healed. Focus on addressing what needs to be addressed. Your intuition will it's going to come from that space
Hmm.
naturally. And I do, that's why I keep saying I just feel like spirituality is such a side effect of healing, because you start to see like, oh, there's more here. Oh, there's a deeper level. Oh, we can keep going deeper here. and and it's all starts with the healing journey for what you need, feeling those range of emotions, reclaiming your power through owning and honoring your rage and your pain and your discomfort and your shadows. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you're not afraid of that, like, like if you can work through that, you uh, it's pure power.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We can go a long way in a lot of places and have more resilience to navigating the world when we can navigate our own inner
Yeah.
environment and the emotions that we feel as humans, because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and it can feel hard sometimes. It can definitely feel challenging sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean that we're here to learn, and that's challenging. Okay, it's important for me to note, like, it's not like I just walk through life like everything's love and God and it's all perfect all the time. Like, absolutely not. Like, I still curse at the person who, cuts me off, or and then it's like, gosh, okay, here's my lesson today. Like,
Mm,
there's always lessons. I think the difference is that I don't let it ruin my day. It's like, what lesson can I take from this? So it's not being done to me. It's being done, so cliche, but like for me. It's like I'm able to look at it that way now, and like truly trust and believe that. And that belief system is built over time, over reprogramming your neural transmitters, your neural pathways to a new habit. It's all habitual, and it's all science. It's all there. And it's liberating.
mhm. Yeah, amazing. I'd love to hear for you with your intuition. You said that there's, obviously all these different ways that different people feel or experience intuition. What do you feel is like your most connected? Like, what do you feel most connected to when your intuition is speaking to you?
Yeah, my clair. My clair cognizance is the first thing that just came up. So I guess. But I was gonna say my clairvoyance, so clear sight. Um,
Mm,
there's two different sights, and I learned all of this from my teacher, Emily Green, Emily the medium,
mm.
just shouting her out. Um, but there's objective and subjective. So some people see spirit, they see things like outside of their body. I don't. I see everything inside, and so I get analogies a lot. Like, there'll be like an analogy, and it just like it's so visual for me. Inside, in my mind's eye, it's visual. And so when I'm working with doing readings, or I'm doing anything, it's very visual for me.
Mhm.
Now, you can always ask and you can develop others. Like, I started to work with my clair audience. I really wanted to be able to pick up and hear things. So, like, when I was trying to go to take a nap yesterday, it was like I just kept hearing all these songs and these voices. And I was just like, it's like in that lucid dreaming part of life where it's like, not there, it was dead silent in my house, but I was hearing all of this like music. And that happens to me a lot. Like, I'll hear tunes and songs and things that I've never heard before in my waking state. And so that's kind of my clear audience starting to reprogram and channel into other frequencies. So, and some people like the clear knowing, I think it's clear cognizance, That's some that's the tricky one because it's like it just like drops in and it's just like I don't know how I know this. I just know it, you know, and so that one can kind of be harder to trust, I've found, because you're just like, well, I don't really have a reason for feeling this way. I don't really have like a logical reason for feeling this way. I have a reason, just not logical. And so that one can be kind of tricky, I found for me personally to trust. But the more that I dive into this work, the more that I've found it's never steered me wrong. The more I'm like, okay, well, might not seem logical, but there's a reason.
Well, that's the thing with intuition, and that's why we're taught to navigate the world with logic. That's how
Right.
we're raised. That's what we're taught. And intuition isn't that. It doesn't have the facts and the science and the step-by-step process of why it is the way that it is. So the mind will fight that and be like, but I need a reason. I need to know exactly how or why. And I think eventually the more and more it happens, like there becomes situations where it's just like, it's like there is no doubt, like there's no possible way that this thing could possibly happen by logic. Like it has to be something greater. It has to be, you know, a greater force that's creating all of this and making these connections. And eventually you have enough of those experiences where you stop questioning it and you're just like, oh, it just is. For me, I'm definitely more clairsentient. I feel so much, like I can feel someone's energy field without even having to have words, right? And
Right.
like feeling a lot when something's really resonant and feels very true, like my entire body feels it. Um, or if something feels light or heavy, like that feels very clear for me in the body, not in the mind. And then the clear cognizance, the clear knowing,
Mhm.
is something for me too. But I don't get necessarily like the hearing or the seeing. Like those aren't the ways that I do it. And I think it's important to note that like no one is better than the other, and that we all have our ways. And I love hearing that you can actually learn how to develop the other
Mhm.
versions of your intuition and really tap into that. I think that's really powerful to know that like we can actually cultivate and develop these powers and these gifts over time.
Yeah, and I love what you said there about the clear feeling because I think a lot of empaths and anyone who's listening to this is I would wager is a empath. Um if you're out in the world and you're unaware of all of this, right? No wonder you're feeling a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression because you're literally picking up on everything from your energy field. Everyone's pouring energy out. A lot of people are leaking their energy out. As one of my teachers, David, would say, they're like leaking their energy because they're not aware of like how to hold that space for themselves, and how to keep it intact and like in their own space. And so, you walk by somebody at the grocery store and you're all of a sudden you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much anxiety. You don't even realize that you're picking up on their energy. You just think that something's wrong with you. And so being able to discern like what is mine and what's not mine is a huge part of this healing process. And a lot of just make it full circle what meditation helps with is like, what is mine? What am I really feeling here? And that can be it's so interesting because it's like you don't think it's your psychic abilities, you don't think it's your empathic abilities. You're just like, I'm feeling, anxious, or the feeling I'm feeling is depression. And I wasn't feeling that 10 minutes ago, but I walked out the door and passed somebody by the mailbox, and now I'm all of a sudden feeling all my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this information is so important to be talking about and sharing because I think a lot of us are empathic and we just don't know it.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know that you share full moon circles. And I think that even bringing in astrology to this conversation, there's some moons where I feel the energy of the moon. And like it was yesterday, I was feeling totally fine all day. And then come like 4 o'clock, I started noticing like low mood, started noticing some depression, and had some space last night to journal on it. And I was like, oh yeah, it is helpful to I don't like blame things on the moon. I'm like, oh, it's the moon, so I feel this way. But it is helpful to have a reference point to be like, oh, okay, like there's energies outside of me that are not only mine, that are having an impact or having an effect on how I'm feeling.
100.
And like you said, learning how to navigate those emotions in a healthy way and process them in a healthy way, so that we can move through them and they don't like take us down for the rest of the week or the rest of, the month, really. And learning how to shift them faster through actually feeling them and moving them through you. So yeah, I love this conversation around how, we can pick up, especially as the more attuned we get through meditation and through connecting spiritually, the more we're going to feel these things. You actually can get a lot more sensitive, and your sensitivities pick up more. So you likely will be feeling energy more the more that you tune into your own highest self and to your intuition. It's likely that this stuff will actually get louder and it can get more intense, which can be confusing for people.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, you're like, well, I was just trying to calm my anxiety. I wasn't trying to like, work with the moon here.
Open up Pandora's box.
But yeah, because these modalities, astrology, tarot, SRT, Akashic records, all of these things are just tools to help you better understand yourself and how you work and how you move. And it's really healing to understand that, because then you're like, oh, well, this isn't everything I thought that was weird about myself, or that was just a quirk of mine, is actually like there's a purpose to it. There's a reason for it. And it's that knowledge is power, but it's also healing. It's so healing for our journey. And so it is kind of the natural progression of things. And especially with the Cancer full moon last night, that is all about bringing to light all of the emotions that need to be seen,
Mhm.
and so with the year that we've had collectively for you, as somebody who's already super empathic, and who's already doing this work and has these heightened sensitivities, it wouldn't just be your emotions you'd be feeling into the collective um, pain and sorrow of this year, and what could have been, and that grief really felt like a very like a moon of grief for a lot of
Mm.
people. um and that can and that's why this work takes you time. You need more time, you need a little more rest, you need a little more time, a little more space, and you do get more sensitive. It's like watching a Pixar movie is like torture for me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, geez. And it's like I just feel so deeply, and that's just who I am, and I don't have to be scared of that anymore, so it's okay. It's like it passes so much quicker. And that's,
Mhm.
I think, the help and the beauty of this work.
Mhm. Amazing. Yeah, I love all the different tools, like you were saying, that we can actually use to get to know ourselves better and understand ourselves better. Really powerful. So I know that you are an intuitive guide and you have full moon circles and ways that women can continue learning from you. So I'd love for you to share where our listeners can find you and continue learning more.
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to find me is Instagram, Jenna, Jenna dot Monaco, Monaco, like the country, but no
Mm.
affiliation. And it's the best place because my links are all there for booking sessions. I've just I've just started doing my psychic and mediumship sessions now. It's something that I've kept very quiet for a long time, and so I'm finally stepping into that, and feels really good. So, but the full moon circles are one of the best ways to connect with me, and then also the podcast. Listening to the podcast, Spark Intention.
Mm. Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world and for your courage and bravery to bringing your mediumship to life and sharing that. I know that it can feel really scary to share these gifts. And so thank you for starting to offer that and for your podcast and everything that you're up to in the world. And thanks for sharing your love and light with my community today.
Mm.
So I appreciate you, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Amy.